Bob Keeshan seemed to have two very different sides to his personality. In one world, he was Captain Kangaroo, the kind old man in the red coat who laughed with kids, told them stories, and made them feel safe. Behind the scenes, though, his friendship with Lee Marvin, another famous person, had an effect on the rest of his life. For Marvin, people talked about the tough guy. He had a gravelly voice and wore his rough past like a badge of honor. People didn't know about this story until rumors started to spread among those who had seen Keeshan's steady rise on TV and Marvin's exciting parts in Hollywood movies. There was more than just a clash of personalities going on between these two men that they didn't talk about in conversations. According to stories that spread over the years, they served in the military. This made Keeshan even more angry. Why did the captain hate Marvin so much, and how could he get away from his shadow? To understand why Keeshan held such animosity toward Marvin, one has to go back to the years when both were barely more than boys, thrust into the chaos of World War II. Keeshan, born to Irish parents in Lynbrook, New York, had enlisted with a quiet eagerness. After high school, he was ready to serve, but as luck would have it, he never saw battle. When Japan gave up, he was still in the United States. And by that time, the bloody storm of fights like Iwo Jima was over. Even though Keeshan's military career got off to a good start, it turned into a story of missed opportunities and not a war story. But Lee Marvin's story went in a different direction. Marvin was put right into it, while Keeshan was kept out of it. The actor served in the Pacific Theater and saw some very bad fighting. During the Battle of Saipan, he got a Purple Heart after being hit in the behind by a bullet that almost killed him. Keeshan felt weirdly incomplete because he didn't fight, while Marvin wore his wounds with a kind of rugged pride. Friends could tell he was disappointed, even though he would never say it out loud. As both found fame in their own areas, the public quickly made up a story about two American heroes. One was a rebel in Hollywood, and the other was Captain Kangaroo. From time to time, fans started spreading a false story that Marvin had told on The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson about a Sergeant Bob Keeshan who supposedly saved many lives at Iwo Jima by leading troops while bullets and mortars were flying all around them. Marvin is said to have said that Keeshan was the strongest person he had ever met. Over time, this story got bigger. People told stories about Marvin as the guy who had to go to war and came back with scars. From joining late, Keeshan became a battlefield hero who earned medals and recognition, standing next to Marvin as they were said to have fought at Iwo Jima. Of course, none of it was real. In fact, Keeshan and Marvin had never been to the Pacific battles, and neither had they been to Iwo Jima. In the story, Marvin was even given the Navy Cross, a title he never got, and that not many people would question in a story that was already too good to be true. But as the story grew, Bob Keeshan found himself in a tough spot. Fans, former soldiers, and even history records started getting letters asking about Keeshan's time in the military. He always laughed off the idea, making it clear that he wasn't a war hero or a man of battle. But even though he denied it, the story seemed impossible to destroy. Keeshan may have disliked being dragged into Marvin's huge story, even though he seemed friendly. He was sure that he could never match Marvin's war wounds, his confidence, or his deep love of the brutal male stories that Hollywood loved. But because of this story, Keeshan would always be connected to the man. As the years went by, the story turned into legend, and it even made its way into places like the Naval Historical Center, where calls kept coming in. It was a story that wouldn't go away, and Marvin's fans took pride in their dream. There's something almost sad about how hard Keeshan tried to get out of the story and how little it worked. When he finally did talk to reporters, he was honest for a moment and said that he felt a little tricked. He knew that his fame was painfully fake compared to Marvin's, even though he was famous on TV. Marvin had scars that proved his story, but Keeshan, no matter how hard he tried, could only wear the scars that Marvin's story had given him. But something strange happened in the years after the war. A change that would let Keeshan come out from behind that shadow. It was 1947, the start of a new era for the country, and network TV was just getting started. America needed entertainment after the war, and NBC's Howdy Doody, one of the first kids' shows on TV, was one of the first to fill the void. Such a man as Keeshan could completely change himself there. To make a new identity for herself that is different from Marvin, free of war and scars, and fun, pure and innocent. He joined Howdy Doody on January 3rd, 1948, and played Clarabelle the Clown, a character who could only talk by honking horns and making big motions. It was a small but important part that didn't need any deeds or medals, just a fun personality. It's still not clear if he quit or was fired, but in typical Keeshan form, he wasn't done. In 1953, a year later, he went back to TV with a show called Time for Fun on New York's WABC. TV, where he created Corny the Clown. Corny could talk this time. And for the first time, Keeshan wasn't just a figure who stayed quiet. Time for Fun was a pretty good hit. Before long, Keeshan was not only acting, but also making up his own personalities without Buffalo Bob's help. It was exciting and new to be free. kinds of things that helped him start his own brand. As Keeshan gained more confidence, he tried his hand at another show that same year, Tinker's Workshop, which was made for toddlers. Here, he played Tinker, a grandfather figure that kids could look up to because he was kind and gentle. This figure was not a clown like Corny and Clarabelle. Instead, they were a calm, guiding force. And this show made it possible for something even bigger to happen. Keeshan and his friend Jack Miller pitched CBS a new idea, a character, a show that would change his career and make him famous in TV history for all time. Hey, Captain Kangaroo! Captain Kangaroo came out on October 3rd, 1955. Keeshan put on a big red coat with lots of deep pockets and a cool, friendly face. He was now the captain. Unlike Clarabelle's pranks or Corny's jokes, the captain was a kind person who spoke slowly. A person who is stable and kind. This was the part he had been getting ready for. A figure whose soft voice, big smile, and calm demeanor made millions of kids look forward to every day. Not only was the show famous, it changed the way people watched TV. A quiet spot in the middle of all the crazy energy in other kids' shows. Captain Kangaroo was more than just a fun show. Keeshan was aware of the effect he could have on young brains and meant it. He carefully taught them lessons every day about being kind, patient, and interested. His co-hosts were a bunch of different people who made the show fun and interesting to watch. Mr. Green Jeans, the captain's soft-spoken, green-thumbed friend Dennis, the cute doll that looks like a child, and Bunny Rabbit and Mr. Moose, who were always getting into trouble with the captain. The world was happy and funny all the time. A spot where kids could feel safe. People who didn't like Captain Kangaroo couldn't deny how magical it was. According to the New York Times, he was a round-faced, friendly, mustachioed man who was always calm. This made him one of TV's most beloved characters. Even though Keeshan's work was praised and his audience grew, it never quite filled the void he had felt for so long. Even though his friends loved him, that wartime story was still being talked about. But in the world he made, he was the hero, the kind captain who didn't need battle stories to be loved. Keeshan became known as the captain over time, treating the job as if it were a chance to start over and write his own story. The show ran for almost 30 years, and he used his power to push for ads that were safe for kids during that time. This was especially clear in his relationship with Schwinn Bicycle Company, a sponsor he talked about freely on air. Direct recommendations by kids' TV hosts until the Federal Trade Commission said no more. Keeshan still found ways to keep the captain interesting, even as the network changed things that took away from his airtime. And even though Captain Kangaroo was always on CBS, he had quiet friendships with people who knew the subtleties of his work. Fred Rogers from Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood was one of his best friends. The two men had a gentle attitude about the power of respect and kindness. They would sometimes appear on each other's shows to make the young viewers happier. In an interesting turn of events, Rogers appeared in a TV show for Keeshan after he had a heart attack in 1981. As a gentle reminder of the connection they had in the group of artists who loved Keeshan's work. But the heart attack made me pay attention. It changed the way Keeshan's career went. He was so annoying that CBS cut his show from an hour to just 30 minutes and moved it to early morning. It was hard to get Captain Kangaroo on the weekends by 1982, and Keeshan knew that his time with the captain was almost up. He finally quit in 1984, just a few months before the show's 30th anniversary. He was fed up with the network's constant budget cuts. When he left, an age came to an end, but the captain's memory lived on. The figure lives on for a new generation on PBS stations with reruns. When the last episode of Captain Kangaroo aired, Keeshan had to start a new story without his favorite captain. He had made this character to escape the war and the myth of Lee Marvin's heroic story. Marvin's career in Hollywood kept going strong thanks to his tough roles and brave war stories, but Keeshan was on a different road that didn't involve medals or scars, but worked to make the world a better place for kids. In 1985, CBS gave Keeshan a new chance with CBS Story Break, a kids show that animated versions of well-known kids' stories. In this scene, Keeshan came back as himself instead of as a figure. In each show, he told a story and told kids to find more books like it. This was a subtle way to get young people interested in reading. He showed up in between parts with books in his hands, recommending books and showing kids how much fun it is to read. Without the red coat, it was a natural continuation of his Captain Kangaroo heritage, and it gave him a chance to stay in touch with the next generation. But Keeshan wasn't happy just making people laugh. He thought it was important to keep kids safe, especially from things he thought were bad. You could watch lots of bright, action-packed shows and buy a lot of different toy lines in the 1980s. Toys like He-Man, Transformers, and many more turned childhood into a fight between toys and ads. Keeshan thought that these shows taught kids more about getting things than about learning, and he wasn't afraid to say so. He agreed with groups of parents who said that changing toys into TV shows was harmful to kids' minds because it didn't teach them anything about being kind, understanding, or the real world. He stood out because of it. A stand that not many others in the children's entertainment business took as seriously as he did. Keeshan stuck to his beliefs in more than just drawings. Early in the 1990s, he turned his attention to something even bigger: video games. Teens and adults were worried about their kids because dangerous video games were popular at this point. Keeshan spoke out against the effects of violence in video games on young minds once more, this time in front of Congress. He thought that games were the next big thing in the fight for kids' hearts and minds. He was strongly against what he saw as a bad trend and used his power to push for a kinder, more caring world for kids. In other ways, Keeshan's life also changed. He started Corporate Family Solutions with former Tennessee Governor Lamar Alexander in 1987. Together, they set up daycare services for big businesses. Keeshan had seen how hard it was for many parents to find good childcare, and he wished they had better choices. They made programs that were ahead of their time and gave parents peace of mind that their kids were safe while they worked. During the next few years, Keeshan stayed busy. He started working on the daytime talk show Breakfast Time on FX in 1994. He was in a light, relaxed place that was very different from Captain Kangaroo's world, but being there showed how much people still loved him. Keeshan's fame even took him to the big screen, where he was in the 1996 comedy The Stupids. This was one of his few movie roles, and it showed that he could make fun of himself while still reaching new audiences. In between these projects, Keeshan looked into live theater. He played the Wizard in The Wizard of Oz at the Outdoor Muni Theater in St. Louis in 1997. The Wizard, like Keeshan, was a figure with a gentle authority who led others while staying hidden behind a character. It was an unexpected but fitting role. Keeshan was able to change into a different person on stage, just like he did so many times on TV. His wizard was friendly and fun, but Keeshan was always tied to Captain Kangaroo and wanted to bring it back, no matter what other parts he played. He dreamed of a new version of the show that would fit in with today's world and be a nice change from the more serious cartoons that are popular now. He thought that the captain was more important than ever, and Keeshan had donors and networks interested. There was a catch, though. The rights to Captain Kangaroo were owned by ICM, a group that didn't want to bring the show back. His idea of a kinder captain for the 21st century never made it to the big screen, no matter how hard he tried. Keeshan's personal life stayed stable thanks to his wife and Jean-Laure Keeshan, even though his work went in strange directions. They had been married for 45 years before she died in 1996, which was a terrible loss. They had 3 children together, Michael, Lori, and Maeve. His family brought him joy and comfort in real life as well as on screen. Keeshan went to Norwich, Vermont, later in life and spent his last years there, where he could enjoy the peace of New England. He is speaking out for kids' reading and writing skills and sharing his experiences as an author. When his autobiography, Good Morning Captain, came out in 1995, it was full of stories from his life and work that showed the guy behind the character that had captivated generations. In addition to the shows he created, Keeshan made a big difference in the lives of children and families. He was honored with many awards and honorary doctorates, as well as an Emmy Award and a spot in the National Association of Broadcasters Hall of Fame. Keeshan's work in children's television shaped a generation and will live on in the world of broadcasting. It was 2004 when Bob Keeshan died in Windsor, Vermont. He was 76 years old. He was buried at St. Joseph's Cemetery in Babylon, New York, the town where he started his story and raised his family. Not long after he died, Britton, Keeshan's grandson, climbed the 7 summits in his honor. He carried a picture of the 2 of them to the top of Mount Everest. Britton buried the picture there as a respect to the man whose life had given so many people hope. People today think of Keeshan as a kind, wise person who always put kids first. Myths that used to haunt him went away, and he was replaced by a legacy that he had built himself, not with medals or scars from fight, but through a simple desire to make the world a better, nicer place.